Buffalo, baby. North Tonawanda, baby. Great to be home. It looks good. Couple of acknowledgments before I get started. In addition to the voice of God, I want to recognize New York State Senator Tim Kennedy. New York State Senator Robert Ort. New York State Assembly Member Sean Ryan. Stop laughing at me in the front row. New York State Assembly Member Joseph Giglio. City of North Tonawanda Mayor Arthur Pappas. City of Lackawanna Mayor Jeffrey Zemansky. City of Dunkirk Mayor Willie Rojas. Village of Gowanda Mayor David Smith. Western New York REDC co-chair Jeff Belt. Chautauqua County Executive Vince Horrigan. And City of Olean Mayor is with us, Bill Leo. And I want to also recognize head of the building trades, Paul Brown. Is Paul Brown here? You know, we ran some tax records, and it turns out that Paul Brown is one of the largest property owners in North Tonawanda. I don't know if you know that. You should give him a hand because he's got big investments here. And then we ran those numbers on how up to date he is on those tax bills. And that's not a great story right there. I'm just kidding. Don't write that Paul Brown is late on his tax bill. That was completely fabricated. Couple things. We're here today to talk about smart growth. And really, when you think about it, Western New York really leads. Going back to 2011, when the governor established REDC, Western New York really led the way and distinguished itself on its focus on smart growth. And it's a good thing that we did, because that was really the beginning of a lot of really wonderful and unimaginable things that we have done together with the governor. I want you to know that a recent report from Smart Growth America and Cushman & Wakefield Real Estate concluded that in the past few years, hundreds of companies across the United States have moved to and invested in walkable urban places. These companies clearly see a competitive advantage to locating in neighborhoods with a mix of offices, restaurants, and shops, with a variety of housing options close by and accessible by a range of transportation choices. And that's exactly what we did and what we focused on in Western New York. Do you know that over several decades, while we were losing population every step of the way, we built in Western New York over 500 miles of new roads, over 500 miles of new roads. Now the problem, if you keep losing population and you keep building 500 miles of new roads, Who's going to pay for all that? $25 million a year it costs to maintain those 500 miles of roads, and we spread those costs over fewer and fewer and fewer people. So embedded in the way we did economic development here, we made ourselves less and less competitive over time. But the governor gave us an opportunity to reimagine the way we did economic development and reimagine the way we did community development. And we're being smarter and wiser. The governor talks about property taxes all the time as being too high. Property taxes are too high in part because we have all of this redundant infrastructure that we developed over 40 years with less and less people. It made no sense. What we do today in Western New York makes a ton of sense. It has made all the difference. Businesses are looking to relocate and locate near downtowns. Why? Because people want to live and locate near downtowns. Businesses need to hire good, smart millennials. We need to keep and attract back, like we're finally doing in Western New York, our great young people who left. That's what smart growth is about. That's what these whole downtown revitalization initiatives are about, keeping people and bringing them back. If you have the people, then you'll have the businesses. So it makes great sense. The governor has made New York State a smart growth state by initiating several laws, policy, and programs that promote smart growth and downtown redevelopment, including the Better Buffalo Fund here, the Upstate Revitalization Initiative, the Enhanced Historic Preservation Tax Credit, land banks legislation, zombie properties reforms, brownfield redevelopment reforms, and many others. His investments in historic preservation tax credits have led the nation since he expanded the program in 2013, spurring over $3 billion in investments from both the state and federal tax credit. Over 2/3 of those investments are made in historic downtowns and commercial centers in upstate New York. In Western New York alone, 88 projects were approved, yielding $532 million in qualified rehabilitation costs. That represents the largest number of projects in any region of the state of New York and the largest investment of any upstate region. In the city of Buffalo, the Better Buffalo Fund continues to provide funding from the Buffalo Billion for Main Streets Initiative and transit-oriented development, providing over $20 million of support for projects that create compact, vibrant, mixed-use neighborhoods and ensure that all residents, importantly, have access to the city's emerging job centers. Just across the city's border, we're seeing work in Lackawanna begin on transforming the 1,000-acre former Bethlehem steel site into a modern industrial park. And we're seeing these principles becoming widely adopted throughout the region. In fact, we are actually standing in an excellent example of smart growth. The Remington Building Reuse Project took an abandoned warehouse building dating back to the 1890s and turned it into a mixed-use building that provides the region with a popular restaurant. How many of you have ever had a beer here? Just curious. Paul, good job, baby. Retail, office space, and a beautiful loft living right at the waterfront. Good job. Paul, why don't you stand up? Both one of them. If you want to know if the smart growth strategy is working, don't ask me. ask some of the thousands of young people who are choosing to stay here after graduating from many of our amazing colleges and universities. Or maybe they're just moving back home because Buffalo's become cool again. When you think about smart growth and you think about the governor's commitment to smart growth and you think about the way he has empowered us just generally now for 7 years to reimagine our city in ways that we couldn't have imagined, you have to think Canal Side and the remarkable transformation that's happened there. You have to think about the outer harbor and how intractable that seemed for so long until the governor said, why don't we just give that over to Erie Canal Harbor Development and turn the rest of it into a state park? It took 40 years to figure it out, and one afternoon the governor called and said, why don't we just do this? Doesn't this make sense? The Buffalo River and the way the Buffalo River has been activated. The transit extension program that the NFTA is involved with and the alternatives analysis. The Buffalo Fund, transit-oriented development, car sharing Main Street. The medical campus and the investments in the downtown medical campus. The Northland Workforce Training Center, so we can train people to get the jobs, working with industry, putting a curriculum together with a training center in the city, and by us putting the jobs in the city at brownfield sites like the old Republic Steel site, now Tesla, all those components working together, workforce, training, tradable sectors, manufacturing, access to transit. How many years did we just spread these jobs all over the place? And if you didn't have a car, too bad, you couldn't get to work. That just embeds poverty in the city and creates a bad circumstance. We've changed that. The governor has changed that. The investments on the east side and the east side corridor, the Zombie Properties Initiative, in Niagara Falls, reconnecting the city to its waterfront and removing really the Robert Moses Parkway that disconnected it, investing in the gorge, investing in tourism, creating a place where people not only want to visit, but want to live, creating more green space in Niagara Falls than has been created in 100 years by removal of both Robert Moses North and South. 10 new hotels in Niagara Falls has either opened or been announced since that project was begun. Investments in our great architecture, Wright, Richardson, the former Psych Center, now Hotel Henry. Investments in our great art and culture, the Albright Knox, the Birchfield Penny. Investments in other amazing downtown attractions like the Niagara Falls Aquarium, the Buffalo Zoo, and so many others. Great theaters here in North Tonawanda and throughout the region. We would have in the past said that a governor that could have done any 3 of the 23 things that I listed off we would have been grateful. We would have said they pay attention to Western New York. But what we, my friends, have experienced over the last almost 7 years is the most remarkable transformation and commitment this region has ever seen since DeWitt Clinton. And you know it, and I know it, and I'm seeing my kids come back, and I hope you're seeing your kids come back. It's the most wonderful thing. We got a really smart governor who's focused on smart growth. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the man who has committed more and done more for this region than any one of us could have ever imagined. And if we combined all of our hopes and aspirations 7 years ago, it still wouldn't have amounted to what he's actually done. Governor Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Well, it is a pleasure to be back. So many friends, so much good news. First, let's give a big round of applause to our great Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. We have our great legislative colleagues who are here. None of this happens without the legislature. They appropriate the money. They write the laws. So it's not that a governor can do anything on his own. Needs the legislature. Sometimes I resent that fact, to tell you the truth. I'd like to do it alone. There's this little document called the Constitution that prohibits it. But it has been a great relationship, and you have a fantastic delegation. They work well together. They're fair, they're effective, and all the success that you hear, none of it happens without them. Let's give Tim and Senator Rourke and Sean Ryan and Joe Giglio a round of applause. Mr. Howard Zemsky. Mr. Howard Zemsky loves Buffalo so deeply and has done so much for Buffalo, right? Remember what happened. He was the father of the Buffalo Renaissance. He did so well that we then made him head of economic development all across the state. But he is still all Buffalo all the time, all right? Now, you see how he got up and he gave that speech with the pride and the knowledge about Buffalo and everything he's done. He believes it so sincerely that everything Buffalo does is right. There's a flip side, which he believes everything everybody else does is wrong. So, in Buffalo, he is highly effective. When he goes to other cities across the state, his speech goes something like this. I did the Buffalo plan. We got $1 billion, and you didn't. We do smart growth, and you do dumb growth. Our kids are coming home, and you will never see your children again. We have a better Buffalo, and you don't. We have Tesla and Panasonic, and you don't. And our bills are doing great, and you don't have a team. He has taken the best of what you've done here, and he has brought it all across the state, and nobody's done more for upstate New York than Howard Zemsky. Let's give him a round of applause. Today is simple, and it's the next generation of everything we've been doing. We started with a quote-unquote Buffalo Billion, which had a very simple premise, that we believed Buffalo could have a brighter future. Now, that sounds unremarkable today. When we said that 6, 7 years ago, people said, no way. You're never going to turn Buffalo around. It's been too long. There's too much cynicism. Too many people have left. And we said, yes, we will. We had our work cut out for us. We had to do a lot of changes on the state side. First of all, we had to get taxes down on the state side. Didn't just hurt Buffalo, hurt the entire upstate. You know, people are smart. You keep raising taxes, at one point people leave. It's not like the old days where they're cemented into the ground. You keep raising taxes, a business will pick up their laptop and they leave. Young people leave. We had to get taxes down. To get taxes down, you had to get spending down. It's a simple formula. You want to lose weight? Stop eating. The implementation is hard, but the formula is simple. And we got state spending down to the lowest level in history, believe it or not. I love to tease my Republican friends because you listen to the Republicans, they make you think that Democrats just genetically have to spend a lot of money, right? My administration, lowest spending increase in the history of the state, regardless of who was governor, Democrat or Republican. We kept it under 2%. That brought taxes down all across the state. Corporate tax down to the 1968 level, middle class taxes down to the 1947 level. That showed business we were serious about bringing people in business back, and that was the first step. Second step was we had to invest in upstate New York and in Buffalo. All those years of disinvestment had to be reversed. We invested more in upstate New York than any administration in history, $36 billion. And then for Buffalo, we had to put our money where our mouth was, because a lot of disinvestment had happened. And we said, we're serious. We want people to know we're serious. We're going to make the commitment. We're going for it. And that was the $1 billion for Buffalo. That's what the $1 billion was all about. And it worked. It worked extraordinarily well. The region has done a 180. The attitude is different. The culture is different. People believe in Buffalo. They believe in the future of Buffalo. It used to be everything was about the past. Every discussion was about the good old days. Remember when, Republic Steel? Remember when? Now it's about the future and where we're going. And did you see what opened? And Tesla and Panasonic and the new medical center. It's now we're looking forward again rather than looking in the rearview mirror. And then we announced Buffalo Billion 2, which took the entire concept to the next level. Buffalo Billion 1, stabilize the situation, bring in some big projects, big employers, big impact, so people realized that we changed the momentum. We needed to get points on the board fast, and that was the Buffalo Billion, and that was Howard's target, was get some big wins, transform that Republic Steel site from the graveyard of yesterday to the promise of tomorrow. That was Buffalo Billion 1. Buffalo Billion 2 is, let's get more discreet, more nuanced, and smarter, right? And smart growth says the economy of tomorrow, the population of tomorrow, is different than yesterday. My parents' generation, you wanted to move out to the suburbs, you wanted to get a house, put up a fence, have a backyard, and have your own space. Millennials are different. I have 3 millennials at home. I don't understand them, but they're different, I can tell you that. And they want downtown environments, walkability. They're not car people. They want to be able to walk to the cafe, and they want to be able to walk to the restaurant and walk to meet their friend. That's what it's about. And Buffalo Billion 2 says, we focused on urban cores and big projects and big impacts and hotels and big employers. Now let's get more nuanced and more of a regional approach and more downtown revitalizations in some of the smaller cities. So we really start to spread out that growth, because the strongest growth is when the entire region is working and is coming back, right? So you don't have just a few big engines of economic action. You have multiple ones. And that's what the next phase of the Buffalo Billion 2 is all about. So go into smaller cities, smaller downtowns that have a vision for revitalization. But the vision comes from local government. Doesn't come from Howard Zemsky, doesn't come from the Bible, doesn't come from me. It is from the local communities that say, we want to revitalize our downtown areas and we have a vision. Luckily, you have extraordinary leadership. And I believe, in truth, the leadership has been educated by everything you've been doing for the past 5-6 years. And listening to Howard in all those meetings and all those discussions. And the leadership is more sophisticated in how to do growth and what smart growth actually is and how to get millennials back. So now it's just keeping the momentum going. It's keeping the growth going and expanding the growth out, concentric circles out. And that's exactly what we're here to do today. Downtown revitalization, attracting back millennials, walkable communities, young people being able to live and work and play in the same environment, and extending the development and growth. And that's why it's our pleasure to announce today $10 million out of the Buffalo Billion II Fund, $2.5 million to North Tonawanda, Dunkirk, Gowanda, and Lackawanna to rebuild their downtown area. Congratulations.
Hello, everyone. Just, if I could have your attention for just one more minute, we're going to do some photos here with the checks and the 4 winning areas. So thank you all for coming, but please just stay in your seats for a little bit longer. We'll do some pictures, and then we'll call it a day. Thank you so much.